In the small, softly lit corner of Willow Street stood a warm, little diner named Martha's Hearth, a place known less for its menu and more for the compassion that filled its air like the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. It was the kind of place where strangers smiled at one another and the regulars were treated like family. On one quiet November evening, the rain fell in thin sheets against the windows, painting streaks along the glass like tears. Someone else didn't have the strength to cry. Inside, sitting alone at a corner table, was a woman named Alina. Her eyes were tired, not from lack of sleep but from life, a kind of exhaustion that settles deep inside the soul. She wore a faded sweater, sleeves tugged over her hands as though she were trying to hide from the world. Her hair was pulled back loosely, some strands falling forward like they were trying to shield her face. She had ordered only a bowl of simple vegetable soup and a small tea, as if she were afraid of taking too much space in the world. Across the room was a man named Daniel, a waiter and single father of a 7-year-old girl named Lily. He wasn't someone who talked much, but he was someone who noticed everything. He noticed the way people's shoulders sank under invisible pressures, the hesitation in their voices, the silent battles they carried inside. Perhaps this was because he knew those battles himself, because life had carved empathy into him the same way rivers carve canyons through stone. Daniel had lost his wife 3 years ago in a sudden accident that left him holding his daughter while trying to figure out how to keep the pieces of their shattered world from crumbling further. He worked double shifts, sacrificing sleep, hobbies, and most of his social life, yet he never complained. He believed pain shouldn't stop kindness. So that evening, when he approached Alina's table and asked softly if she would like anything else, her eyes flickered with something like embarrassment. She shook her head, offering a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. Daniel nodded and walked away, but something lingered in his mind, something fragile but noticeable. When she finished her meal and reached into her purse, her hands froze. She blinked once, twice, her fingers trembled. Her wallet was gone. In a second, Alina felt the world collapse inward. The chair, the lights, the murmured conversations, all seemed to fade as panic rose in her chest like water-filling lungs. She stood abruptly, searching her pockets, her bag everywhere. But the truth glowed painfully clear. She simply didn't have the money. Memories surged. Rent overdue, bills stacked like towers, food running low at home, and now this. Just one more thing she couldn't afford. Her throat tightened as she approached the front counter, ready to apologize, ready to explain, ready to crumble. But before she could speak, before a single word of shame could leave her lips, Daniel stepped forward. He had seen it. He had understood. And without hesitation, without a question, without a judgmental glance, he gently placed his own wallet on the counter, pulled out his card and slid it across. The total wasn't high, but the act was priceless. Alina froze, not because of the amount, but because of the silence. He didn't say, "It's fine." He didn't say, "I understand." He didn't say, "Don't worry about it." He said nothing, and that silence was the purest form of empathy. Alina whispered, her voice cracking. "I'll pay you back." Daniel shook his head slowly, his tone gentle but firm as he finally spoke. "Just take care of yourself." Then he returned to clearing tables as if nothing extraordinary had happened. That night, Alina walked out into the rain, letting it fall onto her skin like a baptism. Something inside her shifted, something that had been buried under months of struggle and loneliness. The world suddenly felt less cold, less cruel, less heavy. She didn't know who he was or why he helped, but she knew one thing: kindness still existed, and that alone was enough to keep her going. Meanwhile, Daniel returned home to his small apartment where little Lily waited, coloring hearts and stars and stick-figure families. When she saw him, she ran into his arms, and in that hug was everything he needed to keep going too. And though neither of them knew it yet, this moment, this quiet act of compassion between two weary souls, was only the beginning of a story that would change both of their lives forever. Days passed. The rain cleared, and the city rolled forward as it always did. But in Alina's heart, the memory of that silent kindness glowed like a lantern in the dark. She thought of the waiter often, of the quiet strength in his eyes, the way his actions had spoken louder than any words could. She wanted to thank him properly, not with money, but with something deeper, something real. So she returned to the diner a week later, holding a small flower wrapped in paper along with a handwritten letter. Her steps were nervous, her heart pounding. She wasn't sure if he would remember her, or if he would brush off the moment as something insignificant. But to her it had changed everything. When she entered, the sound of plates clinking and gentle conversations filled the warm air. And then she saw him again, Daniel, wiping down a table, his movements calm and steady. He looked up and their eyes met. Recognition flickered in his expression, followed by something like surprise. Alina approached him slowly and offered the flower and letter. Her voice trembled as she spoke, thanking him not just for paying the bill, but for seeing her. To be noticed in a world rushing so fast felt like being saved. Daniel accepted the gesture with a humble nod, touched but slightly embarrassed. He wasn't used to being thanked. Most of his kindnesses were small, silent, unnoticed things. Lily peeked out from behind him, shy but curious, her bright eyes observing. Alina smiled at her gently, and something warm moved between them, something tender and unexpected, like a seed being planted. Over time, Alina began visiting the diner more often, not because she needed food, but because the place felt like safety. She learned that Daniel's life had been shaped by loss, endurance, and love for his daughter. She saw how Lily clung to him with trust, how he softened for her in ways the world didn't always see. Alina, in turn, slowly shared pieces of herself, her struggles, her dreams, her loneliness, her quiet resilience. They didn't fall into love quickly. No, it grew slowly, like dawn rising gentle over the horizon. They talked. They listened. They laughed softly in moments where joy seemed impossible. They healed, not completely, but noticeably. One evening after closing, Daniel walked Alina home. Lily skipped ahead of them, swinging her arms freely. The streetlights glowed warm against the night, and the world felt still. Alina glanced at Daniel and whispered, "Thank you for that night." Daniel looked at her, truly looked, and his voice was quiet as he replied, "Sometimes we just need someone to remind us we're not alone." They continued walking, step by step, heart by heart, towards something neither expected but both deeply needed. And maybe that's what love is, not dramatic, not scripted, not sudden, but formed from moments of quiet understanding, from compassion given without asking, from choosing to care even when life has been unkind. So when you hear this story, remember this: kindness is not small. A small act can save a heart. A silent gesture can change a life. And love? Love often begins where words end,